From skydiving to dropping out of school, our next guest star Peterson has experienced the thrills and disappointments of life. Tonight, he shares his journey to leadership and how mentors help turn his life around. This is In Focus. Star Peterson, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for joining me, man.
Oh, my pleasure. I tried to talk for a living, so I like the opportunity to talk on other people's platforms as well.
Great, wonderful, and we appreciate having you here. And let's see, we anticipate a really good conversation going forward.
I'm a conversationist.
Okay, so. Great. You're an interesting guy, very interesting. Would you agree?
Yes, by design.
Okay, great, wonderful. So we're on the same page to begin with, and I have a question. What causes a man to jump out of a plane to tandem skydive? A lot of people would not fathom the need or the thrill of wanting to jump out of a plane and go skydiving. You did it. What does it feel like?
Is incomprehensible. It's such a so I have a fear of heights. So let's start from there. But I'm a person, I use fear as a symbol. Fear is my hill. So if you want a hill to climb, I look to the things that scare me. And that's how I identify where I need to go. So but the thing with skydiving is I don't know if you're familiar with Will Smith's experience with skydiving.
I watched it.
Yeah, so the way he explained fear, where everything coming up to that moment is terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
So even like the our car ride we took because I was working on boats at the time, to get to the airfield, I had a full-on panic attack.
Wow.
But it's we fear that which we don't understand. And I didn't understand what it was I was, but because of my relationship with fear, it has never stopped me from pursuing that which I want to accomplish.
And then when you jumped out of the plane?
It's blissful. Like the thing is, so much is happening that you almost go into shock, and then it's peaceful. So you reach optimal velocity. So matter, like with the friction of air, can only travel at a certain given speed, and that speed I think is about 120 miles an hour, something like that. But at that point, like the wind is rushing, and you would think like the flow is rushing towards you, but you're so high you lose depth perception.
Yeah.
So you basically just floating, you're suspended in air for maybe 40 seconds, and you're just looking around. Obviously the free fall, you like building up to the speed, you feel that falling, but then you have that constant interaction with the wind, and it feels stable. And then you just suspended, you're taking in the views, you're looking at the world from this vantage point. And then obviously the guy deploys the parachute, and then it's not as abrupt as it seems on video. It's still a bit of a gradual slowing down. And then once you start to get back once you're in a parachute and you're coming down, you regain your depth perception. You can mentally process, okay, this is high. When you're up there, you can't process 18,000 feet. But you can process maybe 2,200 feet.
I got you.
And now you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
High. And then the guy adjusts you to get more comfortable. And then you're slipping, you're like, take it easy. And then but also too, and there's always a process when you engage in extreme activities where you submit. You've made decisions, you've overcommitted, there's no going back.
Yeah.
You only look forward, and you submit there. There's no plan B's, there's no come and get me's. It's
you're already out of the plane.
You submit to your choices.
Yeah. You've always been an adventure person at heart, and this is because of your upbringing and your affiliation with friends. Now, you've told me about it off screen. I want you to tell the viewers, how important it is, or it was, to grow up in such a core group of friends who introduce you to the world of adventure.
I wouldn't say they introduced me to the world of adventure, because you know that story where your mom, if your friends jump off a bridge, you're gonna jump too.
Yes.
I was the friend jumping off the bridge. I
Okay.
was always the reckless one. I always had positive reinforcement.
Mm.
So growing up, I was needed to, and I think too, it comes back to my name, because as I got older and I started to interact with new spaces, I realized the impact I have when I walk into a room and say, "Hi, my name is Star Peterson,"
Yeah.
and you feel people process it, and you're like, "Wow!" So I definitely, growing up, being like having the name Star, put a bit of pressure to live up to that name.
You weren't this confident all the time. How did you get to this point?
Failure,
Mm.
constant failure. A lot of the activities I engage in, the only way to become better is by failing. Skateboarding is trial and error. Surfing is trial and error. Like the first time I got in the water to try and catch a wave, I almost drowned.
Mm.
But it was like, okay, that was can't really get much worse than this. So let's keep pushing.
But the thing is, there a lot of persons would have folded under pressure. They would have failed once, failed twice, failed three times, and said, "I'm not. This is not for me.
Hmm.
Let me go try something else, or forget this altogether." Were there people around you who said, "Hey, we gotta go again," or we could accomplish this," or was it fully up to you?
I think again, through my friend group, that element of reinforcing, but it was always like, if you go in, I go in.
Yeah.
Like that's how they're not my biological brothers, but they are my brothers, and they're my because like they're still my best friends. I still speak with them every day, and they are very. If you climb in that mountain, we climb in it.
Mm.
So I've always, like, if I wanted to continue, it was like, okay, if we continue in, then let's go.
Yeah.
But it was also the fact that during our high school days, our trajectory started to change, but there was no animosity. So majority of the friend group wanted to engage in dancing and that form of expression. We always had a form of expression.
Mhm.
I had my brother, my older brothers, my dad. They're very artistic, so they draw a lot. My nephew draws a lot. So growing up, I used to do graffiti and art and stuff like this. And when I started to like skateboard and surf, my expressive avenue just shifted. So while I stayed with the extreme side of things, they went dancing. It was I love you guys, but I'm gonna double down here,
Yeah.
but I'll support you guys on your journey.
Mhm.
And they themselves have also taken that journey and became professionals. I have one friend, he dances with like Cardi B for the BET
Oh,
Awards.
nice.
Like he's on the upper echelons of like the dancing world. I have another friend, he's a videographer but also a dancer. He did promotions with Reebok and Nike. All my friends have aspired to become great men and accomplish great things.
Mhm.
And it's the camaraderie of always, like, I see you working hard, so I gonna work hard too,
Yeah.
so that we can all find a sense of pride within. I don't really have to look far to be like, wow, from where we came we can become
Mm.
more.
Persons don't know. You never know who you are with as friends. You don't know
Hmm.
who your friends are. How do I ensure that my friend, my right hand, my brother, is going to help me to be great, and I can help them to be great, and we can all be uh, at the top of the top in the future?
If I gotta look at a common denominator, it would be that everybody is more invested in their own identity and not identifying with the group. So all of my friends say, this is who I am, and I'm going to be myself while I associate with you. Instead of saying, I need to be like you guys in order for me to fit in. So, and that's why I go back with, like, we went from a very masculine environment to a very somewhat feminine environment. So, and for me to acknowledge, okay, this is not the place for me. I'm gonna go here, but if you guys are happy there, then I'm happy for you. So if you have a friend group that say, we playing basketball, you don't play basketball, so if you ain't playing ball, we ain't really looking out for you. But if you have a friend group that say, we play basketball, but you love soccer, then we're gonna see how we can facilitate everybody's relationship. If we gotta go watch soccer games with you, we'll do that. But then we expect the same investment when it's time for, we go to play basketball, that kind of stuff. So finding friends that stay true to themselves amongst the group is a great indicator of people that are going to have good foundations to build themselves in the future.
Is there any specific guidance you would give to a young man or young woman again? Because finding friends are hard. Finding good friends is much harder. How does a young man, let's say you're going into Form 1, you now start in high school, which is one of the biggest steps in your development, this whole big school. He has to find one or two friends to associate himself with for the next 4 or 5 years. Where does he go? How does he find them?
As above, so below. Whatever you want in your external life, you have to first build it within. Your goal is to double down on who you are and continue building yourself. And by doing so, you will, one, build confidence, because nobody can tell you who you be. If you're not building who you are and deciding consciously, like I said before, I'm interesting by design.
Yeah.
I've had chapters in my life where I had to lose everything, and I realized I had the opportunity to consciously decide what aspects of myself I want to further develop, or what aspects I want to leave. I think a lot of our youth lack purpose. They lack the resources to invest and derive purpose. That's why you see a lot of issues with mental health, a lot of issues with trying to identify. And the problem is everybody else are working on themselves, and the bad kids have free time. Is the dilemma of I guess crime, at least on St.Maarten in particular, around the world.
Yeah.
You have great parents that work hard to give their kids everything, but by doing so, you forgo the time to invest with your kids.
Yeah.
But kids, and especially like young men, they need someone to be around and identify with.
Yeah.
A few years ago, I used to document all the drag races on Bellevue.
Yeah.
And I would literally be the first one there and the last one to leave. And I would film the whole process, almost like a Fast and the Furious documentary.
Yeah.
And it was just because I love the space, I love the effort the guys put to organize the race, make sure it was safe, executed well. And I was like, I don't want to just come and watch. How can I bring? So I went in and I documented it. And now those documentaries are what built the foundation for different events around the island, help to motivate new racers, because these guys bring mechanics and riders from all around the world to come race here.
Yeah.
And we don't even have a track. So, but for me, it's just always finding a way for me to bring value to whatever space I'm in, helps me to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And not just taking up resources.
You mentioned something that's very important, which is the involvement of parents, parental guidance. Young people need their parents associated with. And you had mentioned to me that your dad is one of your mentors. Speak to me about the role that he played in your development.
A very passive one. It was more about presence, consistency, the way that he treated my mother. by just having access
Yeah.
to witness the way he carried himself is where I developed those building blocks. Now that we are both men,
Yeah.
we have a more in the beginning it was like two lions, they can't control the same territory. So there was that inevitable clashing.
Yeah.
But from my mom's side, she always taught me to be the bigger person, and sometimes that means to choose to lose. And I use that to execute a lot now, because if by me choosing to lose mean we both win, I lose every time.
Yeah.
So I chose to lose a lot with my dad in order for me to understand him, because my one of my older brothers, him and my dad for a long time didn't have a good relationship, but because of my deep love for like philosophy and perspective, I realized my brother's relationship with my dad was what he wanted my dad to be and not who he was. So like now I love my dad for who he is, not for what a dad's supposed to be or what a dad should have been, or what he lacked. I have no animosity because like he's present, and now I can see from my lens how he administers value. So my dad is very tangible, so he'll come and help you with your car, or you call him, and he's one of those guys that wants to be there for you, and that's how he shows love. So once you realize that, it's like, okay, so now I look for opportunities for him to show that he loves us.
Oh, I see.
So even though I can do the job, it's like, oh, Pa, you could do this for me, please?
Yeah.
To facilitate his purpose. And that's how I lead.
Yeah.
As a leader, I say, okay, what are your strengths? Where do you derive purpose from? And then I try to create environments for you to interact with that allows you to feel like you belong here. You're not
Valued.
loafing.
Yeah.
And so that's how I try to lead. Instead of saying, you do this or you do that, it's more like, look, I see what you want to do, so here's a challenge. You got this. And you go and engage in that environment that you want to invest in.
Yeah.
And also to my uncles, growing up, my uncles were always a beautiful example of the man I didn't want to be. So I love them for that. Now they've all matured, and
Yeah.
but growing up it was always like, wow, I don't agree with that. I don't aspire to have the lifestyle you have.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna study you so I don't follow that path. And I've always been in a very masculine, adrenaline environment.
Yeah. So it's clear that your dad and your uncles played a massive role in your life, your early development. And another word we could use for their involvement is mentorship. Now, that's a very big thing, especially for young men. We see that a lot of young men need mentorship. A lot of them, they depend on it actually to stay on the straight and narrow. There was a point in your life where you struggled a lot, and things were capped off with dropping out of school. Share that experience with me.
So even though I technically passed by average and,
Yeah.
and with my classes, because those classes was too low, I had to leave St. Dominic High School. So my whole education has been through, I went to St. Dominic Primary, and then I managed to get into St. Dominic High, and then I went through there. So
What happened after? I mean, you're now out of school. How
So-
did things change?
So it's the question was next.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate trajectory from there, whereas St. Dominic is one of the more prestigious schools on the island, and they wanted to send me to PSVE.
Yeah.
So I immediately told my mother, if you really think, if you want to waste your money and pay for that tuition, I am not going to PSVE.
How did she
Like-
take it?
like I said earlier, my mother always chose to be the bigger person. So she understood that trying to fight me wouldn't have come to a healthy solution. So she said, okay, let's see what other options we have. I ended up taking a little bit of time off, and then we found a lady that was doing private CXC classes.
Yeah.
So basically took the CXC program and did it on her own. It ended up turning out to be a high education like daycare for teenagers. And the school, obviously, which is a difficult task. I
Yeah.
respect her for even attempting to do that, but it didn't really go anywhere. I built a few relationships in between, but that kind of fell out. And then I think I was about 17, 16 at that point.
Yeah.
And you have to be 18 in order to do your GED. So I had about a year and a half after that process before I can go do my GED.
Yeah.
So in that year and a half, I if the weather was bad and they had good waves,
Yeah.
I would go to my homeroom teacher and I would literally tell her, out of respect and so that nobody's looking for me, I'm here to tell you that I leave in to go surf. And I'm not asking for permission. I'm just letting you know that I leave in.
But that's a very strong will to think to say. Did you get much pushback?
None. I think I took her so off guard that like you can't not respect that approach. So she was like, be safe.
But the thing is, a young person listening to you, let's say a young man listening to you, and they're probably saying, I think I can identify with this kind of behavior. I'm just as strong as he was. There must be management of that kind of behavior because it could either go way off and the person could, because strong characters, they can either be, for example, strong leaders or they can go into a very dark area.
Yeah.
How do we balance it? How do we stay on course?
You don't. You gotta take the leap of faith.
Yeah.
I didn't apply myself in school because the rewards that were coming from that application of effort didn't entice me. Like I cannot take my 95 and show off in my environment. I can't go buy food with a 75 on my exam. But if I go and I catch the biggest wave, one, I conquered the fear of the ocean. And that's the thing, surfing is not combative. And it goes back to my mother again. You need to be so submissive. Like to ride a wave perfectly, the wave should never know you was there. So this very chaotic environment, you need to find the peace within it and just flow with that energy. Because the minute you try to do what you want on a wave, you lose all your momentum and you end up in a bad position and you fall. But the minute you see, okay, this is the path of least resistance, and now I can flow. And so and that's life. You gotta take the chaos of life, find where the flow is going, and then you make it your own.
So is that another way of saying I'm not in control of what is going on around me?
No, you're in control of how you perceive what is going on around you. That's where your power is. You this whole life is so complex outside of our capacity to process. So you don't like how many times have you had an interaction that made a difference 5 years from now? It's almost like the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
But unless you are choosing to perceive it from a place of exponential potential, you cannot derive exponential potential. So and this is anything you engage in.
You work a lot in trying to have a massive influence in the community of young people and try to be a mentor and a guide for them. Why do you think this is so important in our society?
Back to purpose. I find purpose. I find, if you helping other people, is easier for you to feel better about yourself. So it's almost a selfish endeavor. By like me helping you makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And if I can teach them to do the same, then you just have a lot of people selfishly helping other people so that they can feel good about it. They can feel purpose from teaching. And that's how my skateboard classes, that's how it's built.
Yeah.
The first kids that came, I taught them the process, and then when new kids come, I send them by them.
Yeah.
So now you are teaching the newcomers, and now you are finding purpose in this environment because you are passing on information.
Yeah.
I get to relax because now I don't have to teach everybody.
Yeah.
So I try to make my spaces efficient, and I found that was the most efficient way to develop and foster that community.
Yeah. Sticking with purpose and the importance of it, you have your ears on the ground, of course. You deal with a lot of kids on at least a monthly basis. What do you think impacts your way of living? How does it impact your way of living, not having their purpose found?
Again, it goes back to our education. It hasn't. We've been on this planet for thousands of years, but we haven't really settled into the right trajectory for human development. So when you're talking about individuals under 20, so young adults, teenagers, kids, your purpose is to facilitate the older person's purpose. Your coaches, your coaches want to teach baseball because they went to baseball. Your purpose is to show up to baseball practice so that your coach sees that you are there so you can learn. Your purpose is not, you cannot give until you have to give.
Yeah.
And a lot of young people don't have nothing to give, but because when they look for what purpose means, purpose is a traditionally a giving interaction.
Yes. Service.
But being served or allowing someone to serve you is also a vessel of purpose. So by allowing yourself to be in an environment for someone to teach you something, a music teacher to teach you to play the guitar, is you are allowing them the space to derive purpose from your interaction. And then after you've evolved and grown out of that space, then now you have something to give. But our youth just need to be, they need to understand that their purpose when you're young is to receive, to take selfishly. Your teachers get up every day and they go to school regardless of your demeanor, and they try to teach you.
Yeah.
Your purpose is to acknowledge their effort and receive it.
And the negative side is that a lot of kids aren't in the environment where they have sound and level-headed people around them to share these things with them. Some of them, even in the schools, not all teachers are perfect. There's some teachers who didn't grow up with mentors. They didn't grow up with in a sound environment, and they're now in a classroom, and you're projecting a certain level of negativity on your classroom. There are students who leave the classroom and they go home and they're in an environment where it's full of negativity and so on. How do we change this? Mentorship is always going to be important, but the fact that it's increasing in its importance is because the young kids, or it doesn't even have to be young, they don't have the type of positive exposure they should be having at home. And when they leave the home, in the community at large, where do we go from here?
Unfortunately, it's a very controversial space to engage in. And the reality of it is, we have a lot of individuals having kids that shouldn't be having kids. You know, and I'm from, you know, you end up on the conversation of abortion, and the thing is, I'm not pro-abortion, but I'm also not pro-suffering. For example, certain institutions that try to say abortion is illegal, they're not structuring legislation so that they can take care of those kids. So you're forcing people to bring people into this world,
Yeah.
but then you feed them to the dogs. You know, so until society can facilitate those kids, then you need to have the option that, you know, acknowledge that we're not ready for them. You know, and I think if we can come to a healthy space to accept our responsibility in that aspect, then we can go. Because even now you see, you know, maybe our grandparents, like, I don't know if you have how much uncles and aunts you have, but like on my mom's side I have, I think, 8 or 9 uncles and aunts. On my dad's side is 6 of them. Because of information and resources, you don't need more kids to do a good job. You know, back then it's like, okay, 1 out of the 12 gonna take care of me.
Yeah.
But now if you raise your 2 kids well, both of them should work together to take care of me.
Yeah.
But again, school, you know, like from what, 6, 5, 6, 7, you're dealing with like mathematics and geography. You know, like for me, until you reach the age of 10, obviously you get basic, you know, mathematics, basic language skills.
Yes.
But you need to learn, like, primary school should start with yoga.
Why yoga?
To center your energy. You know, because yoga is it seems calming, but it's a difficult activity to engage in. You know, so all of those kids, after a early morning yoga session, they've already used up a lot of their energy trying to focus, trying to you know, breathe, do these different moves, and then it's easier to center yourself. You know, you come from home, you're playing, the school bell ring, you run into class, and all of a sudden, okay, I gotta focus on, you know, these words on the board. Instead of saying, you know, guys, we're gonna take the first hour, let's breathe, let's move, you know, let's fail together. Because you're gonna have the less physically inclined kids. You're gonna have the ones that are, you know, but everybody's gonna be challenged. No matter how strong you are in yoga, it's not easy. You know, but if you start there, you give the kids tools to say, look, if I start my day like this, I see how it affects the rest of my day.
Yeah.
You know, instead of isolating physical activity, you incorporate it. You know, so even if it's like, you know, just restructuring it, look at the field, look at the kids and say, okay, how can we engage them differently?
Yeah.
You know, embed philosophy into the kids so that they can process the life interactions that they have.
But, you know, some teachers might say school isn't for this. School, we want to teach you math and English and geography and science and so forth. We don't have time to be teaching yoga at the beginning of the school day. You will have some teachers who will be of that mindset.
Absolutely. But those teachers are conformatives
to the system.
Yeah, you know, they are told that they're a teacher. This is what a teacher does. This is what a teacher looks like. And then they take that information and they try to fill that box. And then you have other teachers that, okay, I get all of these requirements. This is how I'm going to impact the students based, you know, on this. So then you get the creative teachers, or the funny teachers, or the teachers that, you know, listen to you, or the ones that are very lenient when it comes to certain things. And you see the kids respect them for trying.
Yeah.
Opposed to the ones that try and reinforce and, you know, use fear and power to control their classroom. You know, they don't get the same relationship that they do with the ones that are a bit fluent.
I mean, educational reform is a big task. I mean, this conversation and this debate has been had many times on the global scale. But looking at our island, if we were to start speaking about this in, let's say, Parliament in the coming weeks, how do you think our leaders should go about the conversation of looking at our educational
Is
system?
if we start talking about it now, is a waste of time.
Hmm.
Is honestly is a waste of time, because you cannot have conversations that you yourself aren't ready. So if you aren't ready to have the conversation, to be naive enough to think that you're going to have an impact on the process is crazy. So until we have consistent leadership that is well receiving, have the capacity to work together, acknowledge, the intellect of the people that they have to work with, regardless of whether they're on the same team, you're not gonna, unless you get unity in those upper echelons of society, you'll never have it in the lower.
So I mean, that was not a very hopeful thing to say.
It again, as an engineer, you address the problem for what the problem is.
Yeah.
You if the engine is, if the fuel pump is broken on an engine, you don't talk about the intake and maybe the wheels on the car.
Yeah.
You talk about the fuel. So you always go into a very unhopeful situation because there is a big problem that needs to be solved. But by accepting the problem, you then can accept the solutions, and then you change one piece at a time, and you see progressively it'll be better.
When you take a structured approach to, like you said, as an engineer, you're changing things systematically. When you look at, as you said, the lack of unity in certain in the upper leadership core of society, change one thing. Where would you start?
Definitions. Definitions. I think a big issue we have is people hear a definition, same, they conform.
Yeah.
So you receive a title, you understand what the title is, and then you conform to fill that title. Instead of saying, okay, I get that, but based on these parameters, progress has not been prevalent. So you take those parameters and understand where you need to apply yourself differently. So for example, in Parliament, the term coalition and opposition,
Yeah.
very suggestive.
Yes.
And you see it. You see how the coalition conducts themselves as a beautiful coalition. But when you look at the vocabulary, the coalition does not identify as being part of the government. And that's where the root of most of our issues is. Because regardless of whether you are a coalition or not part of the or opposition and not part of the coalition, you are still responsible for the end result. But you're not entitled to only complain.
Yeah.
Because if you are honest with yourself, your goal was to be part of the coalition. So you should still execute as though you got what you wanted. Because only then can you get what you want.
Yeah.
So if I'm in an opposition perspective, but I conduct myself like someone that was in the coalition and is part of the execution body, the next time it's come to vote, they're going to be like, well, he was a good opposition, but we can see his strengths in the executionary playing field.
Well, I mean, that's not how politics work, is it?
Again, because of my relationship with extreme sports and my relationship with death, this is all a game. We forget we make the rules. We make, and so you can choose. Like Parliament is there to make laws.
Yeah.
We control the direction and the structure in which the future progresses. So why do I have the power to make laws, but then I also too need to conform? And one of the things that is the most scary when you study history is the people that understand this tend to be the most radical people in history. You know, you have like the Genghis Khans, you have the Stalins, the Hitlers. You know, these are the guys that understand men make these rules. I am a man. Is weird because it to them, or at least the propaganda they put out, is to portray that they want the best for a particular group of people.
Yeah.
You know, but because I've worked with a lot of organizations that try to build a community and do better, I realize they lack the ambition and the disregard for failure to accomplish their goals. You know, I've worked at the Nature Foundation, and it's because my career background is in private yachts. So I started as a deckhand and I worked my way up, and because of tinkering as a young man, I transitioned to engineering because there's very few people in that field that are competent enough to be in those spaces. And once I took that decision, they kind of hijacked my career, so I kind of just ended up doing engineering. And I've spent the better half of the last 12 years in spaces where the wealthiest people in the world reside. You know, so like scarcity is not a word I can digest anymore. There's no lack of anything. You know, it literally based on your perspective and mindset. You know, like you can think, oh, we have no water, and be surrounded by the ocean. You know, it's just the ocean is a never-ending resource of water. We just need to transition it to something that we can benefit from. So like GB will never run out of water. As long as those machines work, we'll never not have water on St.Maarten.
Yeah.
You know? So is reconstructing the titles so that we can have more unity. You know, everybody kind of falls into their expected role, and that's all they play. And they don't realize that they are perpetuating the cycle that in the genesis of their decision to get into parliament, for example, it was to make change.
Yeah.
But because you fall into your role, you just facilitate the stagnant progress that the country has been in.
Yeah. The journey has been very long for you. You had a lot of experiences. You've learned from your failures as well. You've had a lot of mentors on your path. You've now begun mentoring people. What's next? What's next for Star?
You know, God laugh at man who make plans. You know, so I don't want to say, you know, right now I'm using, I will be postulating myself for the next election, and I will be using this as a vehicle for the universe to project what it needs me to do to make up, continue to have positive changes in the world. So, you know, I'm more, you know, I'm not as invested to be a parliamentarian, but in order to receive opportunities, you need to be in a place in order to take advantage of opportunities, you need to be in a place to receive them. You know, so it is a very rudimentary approach for me at the moment, but the opportunity presented itself. It's on a party that I have seen acknowledge the shortcomings and have been changing the pattern and executing. So I've been lucky enough to get on that party and execute and start to learn and have access to that information. So yeah, I'm gonna continue to try and have positive impacts in my community, you know, be on a bigger stage to influence more people, because I think that's one of the sad parts that a lot of parliamentarians aren't taking into consideration, that they themselves now are influencers. You know, you have Minister of Finance, you know, Ardwell. He takes advantage of that. You know, he's one of the few people in government that a young man can say, wow, that is an individual idol that I can, aspire to be.
Yeah.
But you don't see it across the board. Like you see people sitting in seats and you've never seen them before. Who is this guy? And you are, in the words of some people, in the highest part of our society,
Yeah.
and you're not taking advantage of the platforms, the resources. You they just fall in line.
Mm.
You had the guys that fail us before you get in the position to make a change. You hear the rules and then you just fall in line.
Mm.
Instead of saying, okay, these are the patterns that led to the reality that we live.
Yeah.
How do we disrupt that?
Mm.
And for me, the biggest pattern is lack of it. Three brothers can't agree, and instead of saying, let's work together, build something, and then use that as a revenue stream to then develop for the rest of us, they can't come to that conclusion. And you see that because government operates like that.
Mm.
Because if you look better than me, I'm not gonna be able to continue what I'm doing. So it's either we all look bad and then I look less bad than you,
Mm.
then I push you to become better. So like if those three brothers decided, what, I'm I have these strengths, I can apply it to this space. Maybe you are more hands-on, so you can save us on cost of renovation. And then the third brother, you can just supervise. If
Yeah.
if that's all you can do, be the best supervisor. Make sure the guy's eating good or they're being safe.
Mm-hmm.
Play a role.
Yeah.
It might not be the financial side, but find the purpose of each individual, reinforce that, and construct your team around it. So and have good sportsmanship. Like, you're not on my team, but I see you fall, I still gonna extend my hand.
Yeah.
Let's go. And we lack sportsmanship, we lack that team mentality. And that's why, to if I have to name drop the relationship between Atley and Bryson, regardless of external characteristics,
Yeah.
their way of executing in the last 4 years have been, okay, this is the play, you get the ball, you run with it, I pass it.
Mm.
Now you take that momentum with, and that's the thing, like, everybody has a team.
Yeah.
Like, okay, Atley might look good, but Atley have 6, 7, 8 people that does the groundwork for him to go and look good.
Mm.
So it is, and like, so my slogan is, there's no I in government. Everybody goes on the radio and say, I gonna do this and I gonna accomplish this, but there's no I.
Yeah.
If nobody gonna support you, and some people have this mentality that if it's such a good idea, you wouldn't dare to not champion it. But that's not the way to go.
Yeah.
So there's we need more unity, we need more teamwork, we need more, reinforcement within that space. And that's gonna show the country that, wow, if my government can work like that, I should be like, I can incorporate that into the way I structure
Yeah.
my teams or my family.
Well, this has been a very fascinating conversation. I'm so happy that we got the chance to speak, and I think I can speak on behalf of some people and say that I'm looking forward to great things. We're looking forward to your mindset in our space. We're looking forward to seeing what you can deliver. Even outside of the walls of Parliament,
Mm-hmm.
but just in our society as well, because St. Maarten needs mind like yours.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot for coming.
my
And
goal is to just small consistent steps.
Yeah.
I don't try to do big grand things. I do a lot of small things consistently, and over long periods of time it has big implications.
Small things consistently. Thanks a lot for coming.